You're listening to Canary Cry Radio.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Canary Cry Radio. My name's Basil.
And this is Gons. Welcome to episode number 93. As conspiracy realists, we are highly critical of the military-industrial complex, and we see the deception that drives the war machine and the unnecessary deaths to hundreds of thousands of innocent men, women, and children all around the world.
And while we rant and rave about this conspiracy to perpetuate war, it can be easy to forget that there are actual people like you and I on the ground putting themselves in harm's way with the mandate of protecting our nation's freedom, at least here in America.
And as Memorial Day approaches here in the States, we thought it might be appropriate to give you a glimpse of what it's like to be one of the servicemen or women out there in hostile territory. This isn't your glorified Hollywood depiction of war. This is the real deal.
In this episode, war stories that'll both strengthen your faith in God and put you right in the thick of war.
Here's Basil and Gons.
Jesus tells us in Scripture to love thy neighbor. And we think of love thy neighbor as maybe love people in our community or love other human beings. But in some cases, it can actually be our neighbor.
If you're confused, don't worry. It'll all become clear as we welcome my personal neighbor, who's calling from about 50 yards away from where I sit right now in his abode across the tiny little yard of our apartment complex, Byron Rogers. What's up, Byron?
Hey, what's going on, neighbor? How you doing?
Good, man.
Right? I can wave to you probably from here if you're looking out your window.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm in a closet, so I can't look out the window. But
do you guys have like walkie-talkies that you talk to each other, like from across the yard?
Not really.
It's already weird enough. We see each other when we're like walking the dog, you know. Don't want it to be awkward, but you want to say hi. People are trying to live their life, but we like each other, you know. So it's
oh man, neighbors are hard.
Well, I want to tell the story a little bit of how we actually met because it was an interesting conversation, the first conversation we had. And just real briefly, what happened was I have a couple dogs, a German Shepherd and a Lab. The Lab suffers from severe anxiety. He was raised in a dog fighting home, and I think he didn't get the motherly love at an early age, so he's got like major issues. And when we walk him, when he sees rabbits, other dogs, people, he starts freaking out. And I believe we were walking Toby, which is my Lab who has anxiety. He ran into Byron's dog, Truth. And what kind of dog is Truth?
He's about a 90-pound Doberman Pinscher.
All right, there you go. So my dog freaks out, starts barking. You know, I got to hold him back. You know, it's like this whole big ordeal or whatever. And I go back into the house, and my wife, Erin, she's like, "What the heck happened out there?" And I said, "Well, we just ran into the guy with the big dog." And she goes, "Go apologize to him." You know, it was super rude that our dog would just be so out of control and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, I'll go over there, talk to him. So I come over, I knock on your door, you open the door, you come outside, and we start talking.
Yeah.
And 4 hours later, we're like,
yeah,
what's up? So, and it was weird because you had seen Age of Deceit, right? At that point?
Absolutely. And as you were talking to me, you were just talking, and my brain was like, click, I know this voice from somewhere. And I was just like, where do I know this guy from? You know, and then you let me know. And I was so glad. You know, I was so thankful. I was actually kind of like a little bit starstruck because like when I started really thinking outside of the box, your Age of Deceit, it was like kind of like I watch the Zeitgeist, like everybody, you know, everybody who thinks they're on the fringe, they watch the Zeitgeist and they think they're up to speed. And then you don't realize all the Luciferian doctrine in there. And the next thing you know, I'm still digging around and I find Age of Deceit, and it kind of like liberated me and like helped me, understand really the Christian aspect of things that were going on. So I was really thankful to you. I forced my wife to watch, your documentary, so we both were like, oh my gosh, blown away, so that was a blessing.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it was really weird for me to hear that and be like, "Oh, you don't think I'm crazy? That's a good sign,
Absolutely.
And it's actually led to my involvement with the little church out here, and the pastor there, the senior pastor, the head guy, also watched the movie, which made me really nervous. But apparently he thought, there was stuff in there that was right in line with what he was sort of or seeing, at least in the world. So I always get nervous when a established church pastor is like, I'm going to watch your film. It's like, oh boy, here we go.
Absolutely. And I'd never talked to anybody like I'm really, really deliberate with my time, and like time just flew, man. It was definitely a divine appointment. I was just like, wow, we talked about all kinds of crazy stuff. Cause like, who else can you really talk to about it? Those type of Christians.
Yeah, I know. Crazy.
We started a podcast, so we talked to thousands of people about it. I feel pretty good about that.
Well, we only did that awesome. Because we felt like Basil, you and I were like the only people in the entire radius of 10 miles or whatever of the church we were at that were like privy or aware of the stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is after starting the podcast and doing it, I kind of don't feel those nasty impulses to just start talking about it with random people,
Oh, that's funny.
It's therapeutic
or anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it works.
Now, just so you guys are aware, this episode is going to be a little bit different. We're going to go through a bunch of stories from Byron, and it's going to be chopped up a little bit. It's going to have a little bit of sound effects and things to illustrate the various components of the story. So sit back, relax, and we started off with Byron's upbringing.
He was born in the Bahamas, but after his mother gained custody, he was raised in Washington State, where he said his upbringing was very Christian, which is where he got so ripped.
By the grace of God, she just had me in church. I used to wake up 2 hours before going to private school, and I would have to watch 4 televangelists before going to private school, and then I'd go to school. Yeah, man, that's when I started working out because I had those 2 hours. I was just doing push-ups and sit-ups, and but the Word of God got into me, just got deep inside of me. And you train your children up in the way they should go when they grow old, right? They won't depart. But I went through that phase. I went to Christian school. I was at church on Sunday 3 times. Saturday night was youth service to make sure you don't do anything too fun. And then, you go into choir practice on Thursday, and I was best friends with the pastor's son. I was out there at Christian Faith Center with Casey Treat. So my upbringing was very, very Christian.
From there, he said he went to public school, but he had a very strong foundation in the Word of God that carried him throughout his entire life.
That paid me back. That's been priceless. Literally every victory in my life has been based on my ability to hear that still small voice. And then the reason that I'm still here on this planet, as when I get into Iraq and all that stuff, is just basically because I was able to hear that still small voice, even in the kind of tumultuous and intense environments of combat.
It almost sounds like it was a down your throat kind of Christianity. Did you ever feel like, man, this is way too much, or like, I need to get out of this, or, any kind of questioning of the faith or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is I often wonder about that, because I feel like I had so much grace on me. I did in some ways. I was like, man, all this church. But then at the same time, my best friend was a pastor's son. So it was my culture as well. I went to private school. So all the validation in that school came from, really just being a good Christian. But at the same time, I'm so amazed that I didn't just run away from the faith the second I got out of the house. And I believe that that's all just simply because for me, it was always more about the relationship than it was about the religion. And, I just was taught at a young age to talk to God like he's with me, he's in me, he's my best friend. And that is the one thing that actually stopped it from being something that I'd run away from, because I look back at my childhood and I'm like, how did I not defect the second I got a chance, And it was very down your throat. This is the way it is. I didn't really have too much of a choice in the matter, but there was so much grace there, and really just, I guess God was always there when I called upon him. So there was value, and that created a lot of sticking for me to that. It's just where I knew I got my strength. That's what it really came down to.
When you got into public school, did you do all the public school things, or?
Yeah, when I got into public school, I did well, I'm an intense individual, so everything I do it, 120 miles an hour. And so when I got into public school, I did everything I could. Luckily I had football. I was big in football, played Ironman football, and I was one of the team captains and everything. So that kept me grounded, so I didn't go too far off the deep end with drugs or anything really in high school. But for me, it's still, the funny thing was, I just knew I had God with me, and I knew that he was just my friend and he wasn't judging me. And so there wasn't that big, like the religion that like separates you from God based on guilt. That wasn't really happening to me. I just knew that like he was with me and I was doing the best I could, and it didn't really bother me. But yeah, I wilded out in high school. And I got even crazier when I got into the Marine Corps. Way crazier. But, I just kind of knew, I felt his grace on me, and he never left me, never forsake me. And in all, I find that, the mistakes and the pain of my process, and this is one of the things I talk with individuals about when I, do coaching and group work, is the pain of your process is really where the secret sauce is. That's what gives you the integrity to be able to withstand the success of, your process. And also, the pain that you experience and the mistakes that you make, they give you a podium. They give you the rite of passage. They give you a group of individuals on the planet that will lend you their ears just because they know you've gone through the things that they've gone through. And so for everything that I've gone through and for everything that we've all gone through, being able to find the purpose in it is what's really, really become beneficial.
When and why did you decide to go into the military after high school?
There's two reasons, right? There's the all-American reason. And this was part of it. I was an able-bodied, strong American man. So to me, it was just kind of like, hey man, we can continue doing the school thing. Which I hated school. I was one of those free thinkers that was just like, why do I need to learn, all these different subjects? I don't see my mom using this knowledge. So I don't think I'm ever really gonna, use any of this stuff. So I really didn't like school, but I love the social aspect of it. So when I was looking at what I wanted to do next with my life, it was like, you can continue with school or you can go and do something physical. Well, I was big into football. So I was like, hey, keep playing football. But then I had this one of my friend's dads played football, and he had this weird twitch. And I remember looking at him and being like, this dude's got this twitch and you got to live with this twitch. And I remember learning that it was from head damage. And I was like, I don't want to bang myself up, and I wasn't good enough to go like all the way or anything. So I was like, I'm not going to bang myself up to go play for some like kind of college and whatever. So then I was kind of looking at my options. And at the end of the day, I was just like, I really loved my video games, man. So the half of the answer is I was an able-bodied young man who wanted to really do it because there were people out there who couldn't do it. I wanted to do it because there are people out there that are in this country that aren't able to defend the country and that are enjoying, the freedoms and would probably go if they could, but they can't. And so I felt like it was my duty. That was one part of it. And the other part of that same, area was also like validation. A lot of men grow up, and in our society, we're not hunting, we're not fighting anymore. You go to the gym and it's cosmetics now, So really the validation of my manhood, I could attach to that. Like no one's going to question whether I've achieved my manhood, in my little, young mind if I had become a Marine. So that was another thing, and I didn't have my dad around growing up. So it was another thing to kind of validate that masculine aspect of my psychology. But then the other part of the answer is simply, bro, I loved Ghost Recon, man. I loved Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six. And then, that Tears of the Sun movie came out, and it was a wrap. It was a wrap.
So you bought into the propaganda that glorifies soldiers and nationalism, etc. And not that it's a bad thing, But in hindsight, do you recognize how you were sold into participating in the Marine Corps?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the whole kind of warrior programming aspect of it for sure, 100%. And then like the funny thing about my, really my logic is, I don't want to get banged up. I don't want to go. I want to save my brain. So I'm going to go on ahead and go to war, right? Right at the end of the day. And, I still get traumatic brain injuries and get, blown up 4 times that I can remember, even a couple more, and see 13 IEDs and watch, snipers miss me a few times and, by the grace of God, survive all this stuff. And, my logic is hilarious to me, at the end of the day. But the bottom line is all things work together for the good, But to answer the other question, yeah, heck yeah, man. Warrior programming all the way. I mean, my dad is a strong, intense, kind of warlike individual, not kind of a warlike individual. So, I have that in my blood. And then, growing up and the romantic combatant, like, those icons, man. I call them the forefathers. You got your Jean-Claude Van Damme, your Arnold Schwarzeneggers, you got Chuck Norris and all these guys that we grow up, looking up to, all these men, I would say, that we grow up looking up to. That was my ideal power. That was power to me when I grew up, when I was young. And I had a moment where my life literally changed because I was sitting in Paris, and I'll never forget this moment. My whole life changed in one moment. I was sitting in Paris, and this is after I'd become an executive protection agent, and by the grace of God ended up on the biggest executive protection detail in leaving the United States. We traveled more than the president of the United States, and it was an amazing experience. So executive protection, bodyguard, is 1% of the security industry. And then I'm at like one of the biggest details in that industry. So I'm pretty much as high as you can go with this executive protection thing at this time. And I'm sitting here at this table at the base of that tower in Paris. What are we
the Eiffel Tower.
The Eiffel Tower, exactly. So I'm sitting at the Eiffel Tower. I'm trying to have breakfast with my buddies, or lunch rather, and we are ordering our food, and I look at the menu, and Coca-Cola is like $20. So like after you convert everything, I remember being like, a Coca-Cola here is $20. Like it just blew my mind. I was mind blown, and I was making good money. We were making great money over there, but I just was like, seriously, they're going to charge us $20? What is this Coca-Cola? Like, has it got magic in it? Does it do something special? Or is it just like, you know what I mean? Like, is it going to iron my clothes for me tonight or something? But I get in there, I order this Coca-Cola, and I'm sitting there thinking about it. And I look at the table with these guys around me, and I'm just like, hold on, dude. And, really the Holy Spirit started talking to me, and he's just like, why are you sweating $20? And I start thinking about that. And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, it's just $20. And then I look around me, and I'm sitting at a table with, a Navy SEAL, a reconnaissance Marine. Reconnaissance Marine's like the Marine Corps version of a Navy SEAL. I've got one of the strongest power lifters in the world at the time also sitting there with me. I'm the most least lethal individual at the table, and we are kind of at the top when it comes to this executive protection thing. And that verse comes to me, physical labor profits a man very little. And I'm sitting there thinking like, well, your gift will make room for you. And I've invested so much time in building my body and building my strength and, acquiring these physical skills. And I look around, and we're all kind of in the same boat. And I'm like, look, if one of us gets taken out of the equation today at lunch, we can be replaced with another really high speed, cool, tough guy within hours. You know what I mean? Wise men wonder while strong men die. So I sit here and I'm like, well, how do you acquire power? If strength is only taking me this far, who actually has power? And then I think, and it's my client who's sitting in bed in this gigantic suite, literally just resting, and has all of us, working for him. I'm like, that guy's got power. And it's like, well, how do you acquire that? And then that's when the shift happened, where I stopped investing so much in my physical body, and I started investing in my mind, and really, really trying to build that muscle a lot more, in my relationship with the Holy Spirit and all that stuff. And that one moment shifted and changed my entire life. And I don't remember what question you asked to cause me to go down that tangent, but I'll give you a lot of
Now that we got some background from Byron, we decided to jump into several of his stories that were compelling or frightening, and for some, might be life-changing. So we started with his initial experience of joining the Marine Corps before he was deployed in Iraq.
My initial experience, I guess you could say, was like just a rearranging of everything that you thought you knew about yourself primarily, and everything you thought you knew about really the strength necessary to survive in high stress situations. So in boot camp, we've all heard it, they break you down as an individual. There's no Byron wants this or I or me. It's Recruit Rogers requests permission to speak. You know, it's you can't say I, me, you can't scratch your face. Try not to touch your face. Don't touch your face for the next hour. For the rest of the day, don't touch your face. Right now you want to touch your face because I'm telling you not to touch your face. So anyways, boot camp was like this just intense stripping away of absolutely any and everything that you thought was important, and really learning what your best is. And most of us never get pushed to our best, to do our best. So we don't realize that, like, most people never have to push past this threshold, but most people only really tap into like 30% of their best, you know? And boot camp was like, you're doing push-ups and you know in your head, like, maybe I can do probably like 50 push-ups. I can do 100 push-ups. No, dude, you're doing push-ups for 2 hours straight. Okay. And if you flop on the floor, we're going to burn one of your buddies alive and make him, you know, do burpees until you can get back up, and you're going to just keep doing push-ups. You learn a lot about yourself. Anyways, then they break you down as an individual. They build you back up, and you learn that to survive in a life or death situation with your platoon, there's no individual. You guys have to act as one organism. So you learn a lot about, you know, how to put the right people first, and really how to work with others in a very cohesive manner. But really through that stress and pressure, it was another furnace where I was getting closer with God, because the only thing I had was God. And so, like, just one step backwards, two steps forward. So my childhood, my dad lived in the Bahamas and my mom lived in Washington State. So I was basically being tossed back and forth across the country like football. So winters I'd spend with my mom, summers I'd spend with my dad. So that built this thing in me that was just like, it's just me and the Holy Spirit, it's just me and God. It's really the only, you know, stable support system that I have. And then I went into boot camp and it was the same thing. It was just like shaving your hair. You're standing there, you know, in your whitey tighties being inspected. I thought I was in good shape for boot camp. I dropped weight all the way down to, I was like 225 playing football. Thought I was in great shape. Dropped down to 211 to get into boot camp. They pull me in the office on the second day, tell me I'm an obese Marine and that I have to be like 192 pounds when I leave the depot. I'm like, this is impossible. I haven't been 192 pounds for however long. And I leave boot camp at 175 pounds.
Whoa.
Dude, I looked like, you know, like I looked kind of like an underwear model / like a prisoner of war, you know, like, yeah, it was intense, man. So that built that kind of individual capital of belief in me, but also there were just so many times throughout boot camp where I had to be like, I'm going to either die or complete this. And the prayer I said repeatedly is, I thank you, Father, that you've given me the strength to do everything you've called me to do in this life. I still say that prayer every single time I'm at the gym, every time I get on the bench, you know, when I'm about to rep anything, I say that before I push weight. And so to answer your question more effectively, I asked my recruiter, what's boot camp like? You know, what's the fleet like? What's boot camp like? And he said, basically, I can tell you absolutely everything you'll do every single day. And the bottom line is, it will not prepare you for what's about to happen. So, you know, you just step into that and someone asks you, are you ready? It's a joke. They're just kind of like, you know, you're ready as you'll ever be. So let's just get to it. So yeah, it was nothing like I had imagined, but it was an awesome opportunity for me to get stronger. And then I went to the fleet, which that was crazy. The best depiction I've seen of the fleet is in that movie Jarhead, when he first gets to his platoon, because I got to the fleet right after these guys went to Fallujah. And so they went and did the Fallujah invasion. I went to 3-1, Lima Company. And they did the Fallujah invasion, the biggest urban engagement since Way City in Vietnam. And they came back after taking, I mean, it was a high level of casualties. So these guys are fresh from combat. And you get up to like, you go up to your barracks, and on our way up there, we had no idea what we were doing. We're just two little new guys. We'd never been in the fleet before. We got our little backpacks in front of us. We're holding all our stuff. We're trying to find where we're supposed to go. And we asked somebody, hey, where's 3-1 Lima Company? And they're like, right there, hop in the elevator and go up. We hop in the elevator and we go up. And as you go up the 3 stories to Lima Company's barracks, you just start hearing like really loud rap music, really loud country music, really loud video games, and just all these man noises, and there's just beer and pizza, pizza bones, we call them, the crusted pizza. They're just, all this stuff's going on. It's just like mayhem, and these guys are wild, and just testosterone everywhere. And then all of a sudden, ding, the elevator dings, and it opens up, and there's 2 little fresh, sweet, childlike new young Marines, just arrived on the 3rd deck, and no one uses the elevator except senior Marines. So needless to say, we got, God protected me through that, but they tightened us up instantly. We got one of the guys, I didn't see him for 3 days. I saw him again, like running miles and miles and miles away, so we got it in, but the fleet was learning that this isn't a joke, and you really are part of a brotherhood of America's combatants, and understanding that looks really shiny to the civilian population, but what really is it's Uncle Sam's misguided children. The second day we were there, a guy pulls us in the shower, one of the Marines, and he pulls off his blouse and he shows us his arm, and he's missing all the muscle on his arm. And he's like, you see this? He's like, you guys better listen to every single word we say. He's like, and you better apply yourself, because where you're going is where things like this happen. And, it was in love that he said this, but he was hard with us, like very hard with us. And I appreciate that. And he made every single one of us touch his bone. And he was like, don't forget this. He's like, and it's not a joke. And you realize, yeah, I'm here in a squad bay with a bunch of professionally trained killers for the United States. And, that's what we're here to do.
Speaking of professional killers, it seems like with games like Call of Duty, Black Ops 3 that just came out, and other war games with super soldiers like Deus Ex and others, there's a definite push and predictive programming going on at a whole different level. And you said that it was video games and movies that inspired you to join the military, but it seems like the super soldier is the next phase. And did you experience anything that challenged your ethics, or did you get shot up with anything? Did they mess with your body at all?
Absolutely. In boot camp, you've got, they're doing all your medical records. They're learning your body and everything as you go through there, especially when you go through receiving. But, 3 different times in boot camp, you go through an assembly line and you get shots. You get shots in both of your arms. You get this peanut butter shot in your butt, and it hurts like heck.
What?
It's gigantic. And yes, it's miserable. It hurts, and they make you sit down on it afterwards, and like you're limping. A lot of guys are limping the rest of the day. It's miserable. And then you get this, but anyways, you go through an assembly line and they shoot you in both triceps, both shoulders, and then boom, you get your peanut butter shot, and you don't really know you have no idea. You don't know anything. This is all happening to you, and you're just trying to survive. And if you fail something or break down, you stay at the same training day until the next class comes through. So it's like you're in purgatory, and you wake up in the exact same day of hell, literally, and you just pick up where you left off. It's miserable. But anyway, so yeah, there was that. And, there was the fact that
Byron also talked about how when he woke up in the morning, just like many men, was aroused. But then when he got those shots, it went away. It disappeared. And he had no idea why. He had no idea what he was getting shot up with. But it was definitely changing his physiology as a man. Interesting.
I don't know, but it's just, there's interesting things that they're doing for sure. And for me to go from, I know we ran a lot, but for me to go from like 210 to 175 pounds, they rationed me, but yeah, I think for sure.
That's interesting. Yeah, I wonder what they're putting in you. And you can't ask questions. You can't
Absolutely not. You're mortified. You're scared to ask any question because it's just going to make your life way too complicated. Because first you have to say it right. Recruit Rogers, request permission to make a head call or to speak to drill instructor staff sergeant Saratelli. Like, you just have to do it all perfect. And if you mess it up, you're going to get smoked, which means you're going to get like, you're going to have to do push-ups and sit-ups and all this stuff for like, literally like could be an hour and a half. It's not even worth it to ask a question unless you have to. And then if you ask a stupid question, you're still going to get beat. And you're just like, and there's just no freedom. There's no autonomy. Every second of every single day is planned. Every peak of stress is planned. Every rest where like the drill instructors are stressing you out and you're freaking out and guys are crying. Guys are peeing on themselves, crying, watch a guy crap on himself. Like, it's just intense. And then all of a sudden, like, one of the drill instructors will come out and be like, drill instructors, and like call you back, and he'll play the good guy. And then the other, he'll play the good guy, and then he'll make someone make a mistake. And then, they do the whole good guy, bad guy thing and mess with your emotions. But they're for sure putting stuff in that food and giving us shots.
And so you're kind of just a physical commodity at that point. They're trying to mold killers, basically. So they have to break down not just your body, but definitely your mind and spirit, even to some extent.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But they break down the individual aspect of your spirit. So like, you are in these high stress situations, and you're screaming, and everyone has to scream louder, and all this crazy stuff's going on. But then you have to think at the same time, and then you have to not take care of yourself. So what they teach you is, if they'll have you do a drill where like you all have to run in the bathroom, get in there in 10 seconds and get back out online in 10 seconds. And if you do it where like the strong guys just blast through everybody, get in there, and then they blast through everybody and try and get out, you won't do it in time. But if you guys methodically and intelligently let the, faster guys in, and then the slower guys, the way you do it, if you all work together, you'll actually pull it off. And so they do a lot of different exercises with you like that. They stress you out to where people are like, oh no, I'm going to save myself. And then you guys will fail and just get destroyed for failing again and again and again until you guys get smart and you're like, look, we have to do it this way. You have to go first because you're short. I have to go last because I'm tall. And then you guys learn that like, no matter how much it hurts, I can never lose my mind and look out for myself, because then I'll mess up the flow, and then we'll all fail, and then we all die, or one or two of us die, because someone panicked or didn't have the strength to like undergo the pain until it was their turn.
We asked him if his faith was impacted during the entirety of the boot camp.
You know how it is whenever like that stress shows up, everybody's finding Jesus. Everybody's a Christian, when stress is there. It's just, there's a saying that says something like, if you really want to know someone's character, give them power. Anybody can endure things, but if you give someone power, it's an amplifier, But yeah, in boot camp, you're so broken down, and you have this feeling where everyone's back home smoking and joking and hanging out, and you feel like you're all alone, and everyone's kind of left. Life is going on without you. So you're just kind of like, God's the only thing you've got if you have a faith, and so your spirituality will grow in boot camp. I believe that's how it happens. Oh my gosh. So, the only place you have peace or rest psychologically in boot camp, this is hilarious to me, is in church. So they let you go to church on Sunday, and you go into church. There's all these boys just crying and holding each other, just crying, and and no one's thinking about Jesus. Everyone's just thinking about when they need to get out of boot camp, how soon it is. Like, we got to get out of here. But yeah, no, faith was it was really good for my faith,
So now that we've got all the background on Byron, his faith, his upbringing, his time through boot camp, his training, let's get to the real deal. We started with how he was deployed out to hostile territory. During the time he was training at the fleet, his older brothers of the Marine Corps had just come back from the Second Battle of Fallujah, known as Operation Phantom Fury. This battle was considered the highest point of conflict in Fallujah during the Iraq War between the U.S. Marine Corps and the Iraqi insurgency. The U.S. military called it some of the heaviest urban combat U.S. Marines have been involved in since the Battle of Hua City in Vietnam, 1968. But Byron's first deployment was in Haditha, almost a year later.
I do remember being completely freaked out, though, when we were at March Air Force Base training and they gave us a brief about where we were going. And the intelligence officers come in and they're like, basically, this is your area of operation. You're going to be by, the Haditha Dam, kind of by the arm of the Euphrates. That's all you know. You don't really know where exactly you are in Iraq, or at least we didn't. We had code names for all the different streets and everything else. We just knew we're at this little bend in the Euphrates by this Haditha Dam. And I just remember at one point they pull up this board and they're like, so this is your area of operation. This is where you're going to be conducting your combat operations. And then they're like, now these red spots that are going to overlay on this board are where Marines have died from the last deployment of reservists. And man, the whole stinking area, the whole board went red. It was like these are where we've had troops in contact, we've had altercations, and where Marines have died, and basically that's what you're going to see. And I just remember looking at my buddy and being like, "What the heck?" So then you start living life as if you're going to die in a few months when you go over there, just in case, And that's when life picks up. Because you're trained for sleep deprivation. You're trained to go hard. And then you have in the back of your mind, this might be my last few months on this planet. And you just live life to the fullest. That's what you do until you go over there,
In terms of, I guess, the details, I'm curious about just the atmosphere of, your brothers that you were there with while you're, being informed. Mm-hmm. Is there any understanding of the political landscape of the time, or is it just here's your job, because a lot of times, with one of the knocks on, big conspiracies and things like that are like, oh, you can never get all these people involved in it. And I wonder from, just you being on the inside, you didn't know, or did you know the political atmosphere that was pushed to the public to justify war and things like that?
That's an interesting question. So when I went in for those reasons I explained earlier. But then once you get in, you're training and working so hard. You've died, and now you've been resurrected as this other, stronger, faster. You look at your old self and you're just disgusted with how nasty you were, right? You get out of boot camp and they give you your old clothes back and you're just like, well, for me, they just didn't fit. I look like a clown. And you're just like, I can't believe I was this nasty at one point in my life. So this whole shift has now happened, and you are designed to fight in a war. Your whole world, eat, sleep, breathe, fight in a war. You get to the fleet and these guys are like, we're going to bang with you. We're going to test you. We're going to push you. We're going to gas you. We're going to tear gas you. We're going to, ask you stupid questions that make no sense and then make you run miles to the top of this mountain and come back. We're going to, all kinds of crazy things happen in the fleet to make sure, because you want to know that guy who you're going over with is strong enough. So he's not going to crack when it counts, like the things, but it's like this masculine fatherly love. Cause it's like, I'm gonna pound on you so that you have the integrity to survive combat. So your whole world is like, I'm training for this fight. So then when you have civilians would be like, baby killers. I had a few incidents like that, or people be like, what do you think about the war in Iraq? You don't even care. You're just like, look, literally this was our intelligent response was, look, I'm a United States Marine. Okay. It's not time for me to think about the war in Iraq. Okay, I get paid and I'm trained to do something, and that's what I'm going to go there and do. And that's it. That's all I concern myself with. And that was really the mentality of a lot of us, was like, they can sit here and have opinions about it, whatever. We're going to do something about it. And at the end of the day, everyone just trusts that whether it's planned or not planned, or whether it's a lie or it's not a lie, at the end of the day, the United States is doing what they have to do to look out for the United States' best interest. So whether that's starting a fight, in order to stop someone from changing the currency and oil money and all this stuff. At the end of the day, most of the military and the Marines think, hey, look, these guys' businesses are in the United States, so their best interest is in the United States. So whatever story they have to sell the sheep is what they sell the sheep. We're going to go over here and we're going to do what we're supposed to do because that's what we got to do. But then, conversely, you get told like Saddam Hussein is a bad guy. He's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. And they hit us with propaganda in there, to get us to commit to the fight. And then you get to Iraq and you start getting your propaganda and everything starts getting, scribbled on when you're kicking in doors and you're going through these places and, you see like, cause we went house to house to house. I lived out in the city. We took over houses. We took over schools. We took families, basically held them hostage in one room, let the, women and everything cook for us. And we just kept moving like that. And that's how we survived. And so we would end up talking with these guys, in Iraq and they'd be like, hey, like, what are you guys doing, man? Like, you're destroying everything. You're ruining our country. And I'm like, what? Dude, we're giving you freedom, son. I'm like, don't you understand? I'm like, you know what? They don't understand how tight freedom is. Like you and your little buddies, you got your face paint on, you got little skeletons painted on your face, got all your guns, you think you're cool. And, these guys are looking at you like you're destroying us because Saddam Hussein protects us from, all these different sects and warlords and all these things, all these different, the danger of living in this country. He was the strong man. So they're like, you're not going to live here, bro. And when you and your Marines go back to America, these guys are going to come in here, chop my head off and, rape and pillage everything. What are you doing? And they're like, we were better off under Saddam. And they were like, and then you got a whole bunch of little 18, 19-year-old Marines sitting there being like, what? Were we did someone take advantage of it? I don't, and you're sitting there like, were we lied to? Are they taking advantage? And then at that point, you're just like, look, I don't know what's going on, but I got to get home to my family. So you're going to do what you got to do.
That is so heavy.
Iraqis are voicing outrage over the sentencing of the last of the U.S. Marines charged in the 2005 Haditha massacre of 24 Iraqi civilians. On Tuesday.
Now, one of the things that happened while Byron was in Haditha is what's known as the Haditha killings, where 24 unarmed Iraqi men, women, and children, all civilians, were massacred. But there was a conflict in reports from the Marine Corps, who said it was done in retaliation, while in other reports said the Marines simply opened fire on civilians. We didn't really address the controversy surrounding it, but Byron was in Haditha when it happened.
Basically, these guys got hit with an IED and they got out and did kind of a death blossom around the vehicle, and just everybody present within 360 degrees of that vehicle got shot or shot at, and all kinds of things supposedly happened. I wasn't there, but that's kind of the story. But I was down the street. So, that whole big thing happened while we were there, and we cleared, I want to say something like at least 20 some different cities and villages, cleared Haditha, Barwana, East West Sakron, Senjak, all these different cities. And so we were just going, man, so my first deployment was all, 8 months on the ground, going, call home once every 2 weeks if you're lucky, shower once every 2 to 3 weeks if you're lucky, 130 degrees by day, drop down to like 80 degrees at night, which doesn't sound cold, but with the wind chill factor and the fact that you've adapted to the 130 degrees by day, there's a science to surviving in that climate. We saw 13 IEDs, got blown up. It was a grind.
Byron then shared the first time he actually got into a combat situation.
There was a specific moment, I'll never forget it, when, we're leaving the dam and we're going to do the initial invasion into Haditha, and we meet up with these Iraqis in the middle of the desert right before we get to the city. And I'm sitting on this truck and we got our face paint on, our little skeletons painted on our face. And we got, I got all these big guns because I had a rocket launcher, big rocket launcher called a Small, the loudest man portable weapon in the United States arsenal. So I had that, and I had an M16, and I had 9mm. So I'm geared up because I was an 0351. So I dealt with, C4 and portable rocket and missile systems. So I'm sitting next to these weird people I've never talked to, these Iraqis on the back of this truck, and it's like 3 a.m. and we're heading towards the city, and we're just rolling, and you're staring at the city, and they're trying to talk to you in Iraqi, but you don't speak any Arabic yet because you just got there, and you just get this eerie feeling. And I just remember like staring in the distance, seeing the lights of the skyline of the city, and then all of a sudden, boom, just disappears. And you're thinking to yourself, like, what? Whoa, hey, their power just went out. The whole city's power went out. That's crazy. But then you hear over the radio, hey, Recon just cut the power to the city. Are you boys ready? And you're thinking to yourself, like, whoa, we did that. We just shut off a power grid. We just shut off a whole entire city's power right now. This is about to get real. It's about to go down. Who does that? You know what I mean? And then you look and you see, so this whole city vanishes. There's no more light. So there's only ambient light. So you can't even see the city anymore. It's completely blacked out. So you put your night vision goggles on, and this army unit goes flying past us. My officers are trying to tell these other officers, hey, there's a minefield. And they didn't listen to them, and I see my first explosion, a few hundred yards away, and I'm watching this explosion. I'm watching this mushroom cloud, and this Bradley's just been blown up right in front of us, and I can hear the rounds cooking off and all the other appropriate sounds. And I literally remember thinking to myself, man, this doesn't even look real. And right then, I hear a voice come back to me, say, son, you don't know what real is yet. And then it started to boom, it just hit me in my spirit and my soul. This is not a joke. This is not a video game. You've made decisions, and now you've found yourself in combat. And I'll never forget it, man. We just kept on rolling, and we got up to, the point that we were going to invade the city at, and we shot these APOBs up, which are like 100 grenades on a string with a rocket in front of it. They lay out into a field. Boom, blow a big trench in the field for us to run through. Tanks go through and do thunder runs. When tanks run by you, it's like the whole ground shakes. It's like an earthquake. Tanks go flying in. They're doing thunder runs, and we're running in behind the tanks so we don't hit landmines in the trenches. And they start playing like Led Zeppelin and AC/DC out loud. Boom! Because it was just psyops. So you had psychological operations going on, and apparently the Iraqis believed that like rock music was like the devil, the devil's music. So we're playing like rock music, and we're going into this place, and it's just crazy intense. And we're running in there, and you're dialed up. You're hyped up because you're like, I'm going home to see my family, and I'm about to get into a firefight. And I'll never forget it, man. You make it into the city, and the next moment, it's breaking out here, breaking out there. Then you have psyops that have these big speaker systems on their trucks that are playing stressful sounds. They're playing sniper shots. They're playing women crying. They're playing babies crying. They're playing laughter. They're playing really scary piano riffs. They're playing trains coming right at you. They're blasting this sound in the area. They were just playing the rock music. And then the mosque kicks on, And then you have your insurgents in there at the mosque, and they're sitting there, and they're talking about killing the infidel, and they're talking about killing the Americans in Arabic, in Arabic, and you're listening to us with our sounds and them with their sounds, and then firefights are breaking out. And I just remember, one of my seniors runs up to me, he taps me on the roof, and you're laying on this roof that's sucking all the heat out of your body, you're freezing cold, and the dogs are barking, all this stuff's going on, and he's like, hey Rogers, you okay? And I'm like, yeah. And he looks at me and he's like, straight up Twilight Zone out here, isn't it? And I was like, yeah. Yeah, it is. So that was my first night in combat. And the next morning it got crazier.
Oh my gosh.
That was super intense.
So intense, man. You don't hear stories like this that often. I mean, I don't know. I know a few veterans, but I haven't really gotten the chance to sit down and actually get like a meaningful conversation like this.
Yeah, we don't really get a glimpse into what actually happens on the ground out there, but Byron continued with the next day.
The next day, okay. We take over houses, we move, we move to our objective, and nothing really too crazy happens at night. We're just kind of getting acclimated to, the environment. And I remember asking my senior, Corporal Hicks, man, he's my big brother. He's one of my best friends. And actually Gonzo Price sees him at church from time to time. And I remember asking him like, hey, Corporal, what's combat going to be like? Where we're training back in California and we're having a heart to heart. And, for lack of a better word, he's like, it's a mind job. He's like, it's a mind job, man. He's like, that's all I can tell you, bro. It's a mind job, and so we get there, and I remember it's early in the morning, the sun's actually just starting to come up, and we're running down the street and we're getting ready to start taking over houses for the day. We're going to start clearing this city, and you're running, and it's just like in one of those movies where you see like the local kind of third world kids running with you in their little outfits, their little sweat outfits, or so we're running down the street into the next part of the village, and these little kids are like, Marines, Zien, Ana Habibi, Marines, like Marines, Zien means like good, and Ana Habibi means like I love you guys, like you guys are so cool, and they're like Marines, Zien, Ana Habibi, Marines, like we love you guys, and they're running with us, and they're like looking at our cool American stuff, like ooh, like looking at our watch, and they're like admiring us, and you're running down the street, and they pointed to the first house, and the little kid's like, oh, Ane Biet, like this is my house, and you have this moment, and you're all geared up, and you're like, I'm about to kick this kid's door in, possibly kill his family members, take these people prisoner, and like at the very least, I'm about to take control of his family, basically hold them hostage right in front of him, and search his entire house as if he's an enemy. And he's just out here trying to he thinks we're the coolest things. We look like space age warriors. We look like astronauts to him. You know what I mean? And so you're running, and these little cool little kids are like trying to be cool with you. And then next thing you know, they point at the first house you're supposed to hit, and boom, you kick in the door, and you're going in there, and you got your weapons drawn, and you're pulling women and children out, and you're lining, you're getting them all consolidated, out on the lawn, and the little kids looking oh, why? Enta Habibi, we're friends, why? And you're just and that's the mind job aspect of it, and then I have my senior Marines that were there that trained me, and they were hard on me, and I love them for that. And they're in there and they're ripping stuff apart, looking through everything, and because they're already hardened, and I'm still shell shocked because I'm like, these are nice people, what are you doing? No, and my senior Marines are just getting it in. They're, searching these houses and flipping things over. And one of my senior Marines, a little Filipino guy, man, Corporal Praxidis at the time, one of the hardest Marines I ever known, but he's just a little smaller Filipino guy, but I got all the respect for him in the world. He's got the biggest heart I've ever seen. And he grabs me by the throat guard of my body armor, and he pulls me close, and he looks me in the eyes, and he's like, I know these guys are Mooj. He's like, find me something, Rogers, find it. I know it's here. And I'm thinking hey, Corporal Praxis, these guys there's no way these are bad guys. Look, the father's helping us. He's being nice. The father's opening all the cabinets in the house, trying to help us as much as he can. He's being nice. He's like, oh yeah, come in. Telling the women and children to just relax. And everyone seems to be so nice and so cool. And, Corporal Praxis grabs me. He's like, find me something. I know these guys are bad guys. And I'm thinking dude, you were here before, and you were in Fallujah, so you just got a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. Relax, man, and that's what I'm thinking. And I start looking around the house, and the Holy Spirit is just walking around back. Everyone's searching the house. They're flipping the house, because we got a bunch of houses we got to get to. And so we're clearing the house. We're flipping the house. And he's just like, why don't you go look outside, look out back, around back real quick. So I go look around back, and a few things catch my eye. There's a water drum that has no water, but the other 3 of them have water in it, and there's 4 of them there. I'm like, well, why doesn't this one have any water? So then I move it out of the way, and then there's a little pallet, and I'm like, why is there a pallet under this thing that has no water? And then all of a sudden I look down there, and I start digging, and I pull a 155 anti-tank shell. An old Russian 155 anti-tank artillery shell, tamped and ready to explode out of the ground. Okay? And these things are heavy. They're huge. Just imagine probably the size of 2 footballs put together, and it probably weighs 60 pounds. And I'm pull this thing out of the ground. I lift it up, and I'm walking out into the middle of the courtyard, and I'm holding, okay, so you remember, what was that movie, Hurt Locker? When he pulls that string and all those shells come out of the ground?
Right.
So I've got one of those, okay, designed to destroy a tank, and I walk it out in the middle of the like courtyard with my Marines, and I'm just a new Marine. I don't realize what I'm doing. I'm like, hey guys, look what I found. And everyone's like, get that out of here, Rogers. You know, they're just like jumping over everything, hiding. So, you know, long story short, I found an IED. That was that anti-tank shell. And then I found like 20 some fake passports. I found like 16 vials of adrenaline. I found literally like how to be an insurgent 101 with books and things in there. I found piles of machine gun shells, AK shells, casings on the roof from where this guy was shooting at us the night before. And, the combat gear, you know, deuce gear for, you know, holding magazines. So at that moment in Iraq, you're just like, what's going on? Like, that's that mind job. That's that mind job he's talking about, you know, and I got this guy hostage, and, you know, we're going to arrest this guy and take this kid's dad away, this family's dad away, and for sure probably make more insurgents right now. And, you know, I find a weapons cache with a bunch of AK-47s and RPGs that was booby trapped when we actually opened it. You know, a blasting cap blew up, didn't injure anybody, and that was like, it was just that moment when you're just like, look, man, things are not as they seem. You're in combat. And I think more for me that day was like, it hit my heart. You know what I mean? And Corporal Praxis was right. And it was just like, you know, that was just one of those things that happened that like shifted my perception so much.
How close were you to actually, you know, just in hindsight, you said that, you know, tanker, I don't know what it's called.
155 shell?
Yeah. Was it ready to explode, or like how?
Oh yeah. It was tamped. It had a blasting cap in it. So the only question was whether it was a command detonate, like a wireless command detonate, like he had a cell phone or a garage door opener somewhere that he had to push to detonate it. Yeah. That was the only question, is whether it had the antenna in it to receive a charge or not.
Okay.
And by the grace of God, it didn't. So I'm here, and my platoon is here. Well, my whole squad would have got wiped out.
It's unreal. It's so unreal.
Yeah. Well, this is just the first of, 2 or 3 stories that we're going to hear today.
Yeah, we've got a few more coming up here.
This next story is about Pegasus Bridge. But to tell us the story, Byron starts off with something that happened to him when he was staying with his father in the Bahamas as a young boy.
You know, I've had these moments in my life where I've heard God's voice, you know, and these have been like huge choice points in my life. And, you know, the first one happened really when I was like 5, and I was sitting there on the couch in my living room, and I remember being like, ooh, I'm comfortable. I'm just going to sleep in the living room tonight. Right. So I get ready to go to sleep, and I grab a blanket, and like I hear a voice. Like it wasn't like an audible voice, but it was so pretty much audible that to me, it was like an audible voice. Like I hear like a voice literally say, go in your dad's room and sleep. And when you're 5, like you still don't really know what reality is. You know what I mean? You believe in Spider-Man and Superman. So like the way I was raised, I just knew it was the Holy Spirit. And I was like, and this just shows how, you know, just how kind of comfortable I was, you know, and I literally am like arguing with the Holy Spirit. I'm like, no, I'm comfortable. The air conditioning's on. I'm going to watch TV, and I'm going to go to sleep on the couch. And, you know, the Holy Spirit's like, go in your dad's room and go to sleep. And I'm like, no, I want to stay here, and I want to sleep on the couch. It's comfy. And I literally have this argument. And the third time, finally, I'm like, you know what? If you're not going to let me go to sleep, I'll go in my dad's room and sleep. Fine. And I get up. And I go in there, and kind of long story short, you know, I get in there, I get comfortable. He's like, I get in there, I get comfortable, and he wakes me up again. He's like, go get your sister off the couch. And I'm like, I literally sit up, and I'm like, you're supposed to know everything. And if you know everything, you know, I can't get my big sister off the couch because she'll beat me up. And, you know, the Holy Spirit, the voice comes back to me and says, go in the living room and I'll tell you what to do. So I go in the living room. Before I can even ask, he's like, snatch her blankets and run in the room. So I snatch her blankets. Obviously, she'll get cold. The air conditioning's blasting. We're in the Bahamas. This is before my dad really made all of his money, and we're living back in like the Haitian village. So there's like roosters running around and shacks and things. And my dad had just started the first security force kind of SWAT team in the Bahamas, and he was locking up more people. I mean, he was putting people in jail, you know. So just a little backdrop. So anyways, I go in there. I steal this blanket from her. I run back, and I'm in the room, and then she comes in, walks in. middle of the night, smacks me in the back of the head, takes a blanket, lays down, and goes to sleep. And I'm getting ready to go to sleep, and, the Holy Spirit comes back, and he's like, lock the door. So I get up and I lock the door. I sit down. I'm sitting up. I'm sitting on the floor, getting ready to go back to sleep. I'm like, is there anything else? And it's just silent. So then I get that feeling, that peace. Okay. So, all right, fine. If you want anything else, like, I'm going to sleep now. So I'm all annoyed. I go to sleep, and he wakes me up again. And I'm literally now sitting up, and I'm looking around the room, and I'm just like, what? Like, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? Why? And then I'm just upset. I don't really say anything. I don't make any verbal noise because I've been talking out loud, the whole ordeal, and I don't really say anything. But I got this kind of eerie feeling, but I didn't have a feeling that he was going to say anything to me again. And so I kind of knew like the Holy Spirit wasn't going to say anything, but I just was like looking around the room. And all of a sudden I hear this little scratching noise. This little kind of scratching noise. And I'm thinking like there's a rat like in the wall eating its way through, like trying to get to the room or something somehow, right? And I literally like am looking for this rat or mouse or something that I think is in the room. And right in front of my face, I see the doorknob moving. And I'm 5. So the doorknob is like, eyeball height. And so I'm staring at this doorknob moving back and forth. And, someone was trying to pick the lock and get in the room, with my dad and me. In the Bahamas, if someone comes in your house, they will clean your whole entire house out in like 8 minutes. Like they're good at stealing things. So, the fact that someone's trying to pick the lock where we were was already kind of weird. So I go and I shake my dad. I'm like, Dad. Someone's trying to get in. And he stops snoring. They stop trying to pick the lock. And then he's like, get my shotgun. I go underneath the crib. I grab his shotgun. He wraps around. You hear like 6 people run through the living room, trip over the coffee table, and boom, the screen shuts behind them. So we go out. Dad clears the house, and they haven't stolen anything. Okay, so there was basically a group of individuals were in my house to assassinate my father and probably kill all of us that night. And we all lived because I heard that still small voice. So I tell you that story to tell you this next story where I'm in Iraq, and we're literally get sent on a mission called Pegasus Bridge. And it was like our Black Hawk Down, in my opinion. We don't really take casualties in the Marine Corps. Like, it just doesn't really happen too often, really. And, we get a call, and they say that India Company, which is like one of the more like hardcore companies within my battalion, took 60% casualties, some huge number of casualties overnight on this mission because they got sent to this new area of operation. And my platoon was going to go in there and augment their efforts to help them get out and everything else and help them complete the mission. And so we get geared up and we go into this place that's far, like kind of outside of our area of operation, and we're clearing houses. And this is the only place I've cleared, well over 20 cities, probably something in the 30 something cities in Iraq and villages. And this is the only place where people are like, hey, guys, like the Iraqis, usually it's like, Ana Habibi, Marines in, like, yeah, and the Laha, Mujahideen, Laha. They're like, no bad guys, no Mujahideen, all good people here, ha 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 ha. Then you turn the corner and then they like shoot at you or blow you up. No, here the public was literally, they looked at us and they're like, hey, like basically like, not for nothing, you look like really nice kids. You need to leave. There are a lot of bad guys here. And so that is such a like complete different, like experience when you've cleared all these cities and everyone's always like, oh, we're not doing anything bad, ha ha ha. And then here they're like, hey, you know what? Like, you guys seem like nice people, like leave because this is bad. It's bad here. And so we went through there and we spent the morning picking up the pieces from last night. And these guys were really technically proficient with their bombs. They were blowing Humvees down hills into swamps and just cleaning up the carnage from the night mission before, which was already tough. And I get into my vehicle and I rode around in a 7-ton, which is like a big up-armored semi-truck, like a combat semi-truck. And my sergeant, Tonto was his code name. He's like, hey, Rogers, get in my vehicle, in my Humvee, and I'm going to give you the mission. I'm going to tell you what we want to do at this next waypoint. So I hop in his vehicle and my spidey senses are going nuts. Like, I've always been able to really sense danger, and, Holy Spirit, whatever, my intuition is going crazy. It's just like, this isn't right. Something's not right. Like something bad's about to happen. And I look up and our driver's feeling it too. And he's like a new Marine, and he's sitting there sweating bullets, and he's driving really close to the vehicle in front of him. And me and Tonto look at him, and we like smack him in the back of the head, and we're like, hey, pull back, because if and when they get blown up, we're going to catch secondary projectiles that all get messed up too, because you're freaking out and you're too close to them because it's scary to you. So we, smack him in the head. He pulls back. I'm freaking out inside, and I'm trying to be cool. I look in the seat in front of me, and there's a Bible. There's one of those little Just New Testament joints. So I reach in there and I read something. I can't remember what I read, but it was so perfect for exactly what I needed, and I'm like, okay, calm down. You're reading the Bible. That's good. You needed that. And then I set it back down, and a few minutes go by, and I'm like, hey, Tonto, you know me, man. I'm not soft. I'm not like a scaredy cat, but like, I really just want to get out of your Humvee and back in my semi-truck, get back in my 7-ton. Because if you get blown up in a Humvee, your chances of survival are so much less than if you get blown up in the 7-ton. Okay, so I'm just like, I want to get back in my vehicle with my guys, because I was a troop leader in the back. So I had 9 Marines that I was in charge of back there. They were like my sons, and I was separated from them. So I was like watching them up there, and he's like, good to go, Rogers. He's like, we get up to this next stop, this next intersection, I'll let you pop out and run back up there with your boys. I'm like, good to go. So we start pulling up to this next intersection, and freaking the driver, Cressa, is just scared, and he's right up behind these guys again. He's right up behind the vehicle, and we smack him in the back of the head. They roll to a stop. He's already stopped. We get a pretty decent distance, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Just this flame comes out of the ground, like hell opened up, and hits my vehicle where I would have been sitting. And I watch the body armor of this semi-truck flap out like wings, and everything bow out in the troop compartment where my guys are, and then just suck back down into the ground. And then, Martinez, one of my brothers, from my same class, comes and just flops out the back. And, the semi-truck is like 7-foot clearance from the ground. So he just walks right off that and just boom, face plant 7 feet. And, when they hit you once, that they plant 2 bombs, so that basically they blow you up with one, you go in to try and save lives and triage, and then boom, they blow you up with a second one, and they destroy the triage force as well, and you guys are combat ineffective, and then they ambush you and kill the rest of you. So these guys, my sons are all up there. The guys I trained, my squad, the guys I'm responsible for, just got blown up. I watched one of my brothers flop out the back, and we're getting out and we're running in there, and we're just running in there to try and save lives. And I'll never forget it. We pull another guy that I went through, all my training with, that was my class as well. We pull him out, and he's not moving. He's not breathing. He's not anything. We check his pulse, and he's gone. And, I just remember at that moment, I was just staring at him, and I was just like, man, I saw this guy's, the last chapters of his life. I know him better than most anybody he probably has in his life. I've seen him under more stress and pain than anybody else. I was like, and that's life. It's that fleeting. It's that fast. And I just feel like the Holy Spirit had me fixed on his face. And I was just staring at his face, and they're calling out his kill numbers. When you go to combat, you get a kill number, which is a number that they read out if you die out there. So when they read this number out, the battalion knows who we've lost. And so they're calling out his kill number right in front of me. I'm standing right next to Tonto, and he's just like, boom, 158, over the radio. And I'm staring at my boy Naram's face. And all of a sudden, right as they're zipping him up in a body bag right in front of me, zipping him up in a body bag. And right as they get ready to zip his face up, he blinks. And I was the only one who saw it. And I mean, someone else may have saw it, but I was the only one who was like, hey, he just blinked. We pull him out of a body bag, and we just basically start, trying to save his life, which pain was the thing that would keep him there and kept him blinking and kept him working. So we just started working on him, sternum rubs, the whole deal, and kept him stimulated, as they'd say, until the bird came and saved his life. And then after that explosion happens, they pull us to, I start setting my guys up in 360 degree security. I have everyone looking for bombs, looking for secondary bombs. Everyone's looking. I'm running around. We're in a sniper area. So basically you never want to stay in one spot for more than 3 to 4 seconds. I'm up. He sees me. I'm down is going on in your head. You're saying that repeatedly because that's how long it takes a sniper to aim at you. I'm up. He sees me. I'm down. 3 to 4 seconds from the time they see you to the time they can shoot you. So you're running, you stay moving, and you get a low silhouette. You take a knee as often as you can. So I roll up and I get ready to take a knee next to one of my buddies. And I'm like, hey, did you look around? You see any more bombs, any more trigger devices? And they're like, no, it's all good. And I stop. I'm mid-kneel, dropping my knee because I don't want to get hit by a sniper. And all of a sudden, that still small voice comes screaming back to me and he says, look at your feet. And I look at my feet. And I see something. I see these two I see a hacksaw blade laying on the floor. So I'm thinking, oh, it's just garbage, it's just debris. But then I look a little bit closer and I realize that the hacksaw blade is on top of another hacksaw blade that's got these little buffers in between it so that the hacksaw blades don't touch unless they're depressed. And once they're depressed, because they're touching, it completes a circuit and it goes into a bomb, right? So I look down and I see this trigger device. Now, right next to the trigger device is a gigantic crater where the bomb just went off. So my logic says this is the trigger device because you always find the trigger device. Like you trip a tripwire, then you find the tripwire, right? So I'm like, oh, well, obviously this is the trigger device. So I just yell to my guys, hey, this is what blew you guys up right here. And I reach down and I'm going to mess with it because I think it's expended. And this was one of the eeriest moments of my entire life because that voice came back to me again. And I'm literally going down to push this thing and mess with it to check it out. And that voice comes back to me and says, don't push that, pick it up. And then I felt this feeling that was like, it was like, in an instant, the understanding of I've taught you how to hear my voice. I've taught you how to follow me. And basically, this is what it's all come down to, this one moment in time. If you can hear my voice now, like I felt almost, really, to be honest with you, I felt like my protection kind of left. Like I've taught you what to do. I've taught you how to do it. Now I'm going to stand back and see, and it was crazy. And that's really what got my attention was just the like, whoa. Something serious just happened. I feel like something lifted to where it's like, if there were tumbleweeds, bro, there would have been tumbleweeds. My whole entire battalion, stopped. There was a 7-ton that was in the distance. I don't even know how they heard me. They stopped. Everyone looked at me. Everyone in my squad looked at me. It was an eerie moment. I felt like I was just the center of attention. And then I picked this thing up instead of pushing it at the last minute. And I was standing on top of 2 155 anti-tank shells that were wired to explode. You would have maybe found wallet-sized pieces of my body armor 200 yards away, 150 yards away. I would have been pink mist. And so would the guy next to me if I had just not heard that voice that time. So then I get my guys, we retreat inside. I pull them all off the street, and we take over the nearest house and we hunker down and we send our wounded back to base, which was 1 hour away. And that 1 hour drive turned into almost a 24-hour movement because they met so much resistance from the enemy. We went and took over a house to try and complete the mission. We took contact at that house and ended up having to abandon that house. And my squad, we spent the night in a graveyard because they wouldn't mess with us in a graveyard and, finished the mission and then came back to base the next day. So that was Pegasus Bridge.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, did you share with anybody, just these instincts or the Holy Spirit talking to you? Like, was that because everybody saw you find this thing, and it's obviously a pretty big part of how you operate in dangerous situations. I mean, was there a time where you were able to talk to guys kind of about what you're experiencing in that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was kind of known, like, you know, they were just like, Byron's got intuition, spidey sense, whatever. If he says there's danger, there's danger. And, so they really honored me with that, you know, and, so I was just honest with everybody. I was like, look, man, this is just what saved my life. And this is, you know, even after the Marine Corps, what got me to executive protection, that's a whole nother story about that exact same, you know, how God moved me in order to get me in the right spot to get to me what he wanted me to have. But, yeah, no, everyone knew. I was like, look, you know, that's my relationship with the Father. That's where I get my strength and my intuition. Yeah, they knew.
So it seems like in Byron's life that he's been protected by a lot of physical harm, that God has really had his hand on him. But during his second deployment, things get a little bit more real.
One of the other main, you know, huge kind of life-changing things that happened to me was, you know, one day we're out on a mission, and I was sitting in the back just singing this little song I was making up as we were going. And I was, you know, like I told you, I was a troop commander in the back of this 7-ton. So I had like, you know, 8, 9, 10 guys, you know, at different times, but I had my little squad back there, and they were like my sons and brothers. And, one of them was my big brother, you know, but they were my guys, you know, and I was always training them. I was always telling them, hey, you know, always think about what you're going to do when we get blown up. You know, always think about what you're going to do when we get shot at before it happens, so that when it happens, you know, your training takes over. Yes, but also boom, you already know where you're going. You know what you're doing, and you're ready, psychologically prepared for that. Because if you haven't thought about it, you'd hate to freeze. You'd hate to be that guy that freezed, or that guy that wet his pants, because it happens, you know. So I was always telling them, hey guys, are you guys thinking about what you're going to do? Are you guys thinking about what you're going to do when we get blown up? You know, and so one of my little new guys, we call him Boots. One of my little Boots leans back and he's like, hey, Lance Corporal Rogers. He's like, I figured out what I'm going to do if we get blown up. And I looked at him and I said, if, and I was like, listen, we are lead vehicle in an AO, area of operations, that is an 80% victim initiated IED bed. So like 80% of the bombs are victim initiated, meaning they don't miss, really. Okay, they might miss fire, you know, but we're lead vehicle. There's only but so many roads. So I was like, we're going to get blown up. It's going to happen. You know, and this is my second deployment. So I already kind of like, you know, it's a crazy paradigm. It's a crazy place to be, where you live life ready to die at any minute, any moment. You know, like every time you leave base, even when you're on base and you're sleeping, you know, like you are ready to die. And you know it could happen. And it's just crazy to think about, you know, being like that. And so, you know, now that I'm out of it, you know, but at that time, it was just what I had to do. And it's what I accepted, and is what I was present with. And that gave me power, you know, to do everything I could do about it, and feel comfortable in that space. But, you know, I look at him and I'm like, we're going to get blown up. And, you know, he hasn't been blown up yet. So he's just like sitting there like, and I'm like, think about it. And he's like, I know what I'm going to do. Anyways, so we keep rolling. And right after I say that, he sits back down. You know, I ask him what he's going to do. He tells me his little plan. I was like, good, you know, and we're sitting there and I'm singing this little song with my buddy in the back, Hebert, who was one of my big brothers. And, I didn't even hear anything. It was just, all of a sudden, everything was different. And I remember just trying to figure it out. Like, what happened? Like, where am I? And what's going on? And I was just like completely not dazed, but everything was just different. And I remember being like, well, what was I thinking? What was the last thing I was thinking? And as I was asking this question, I literally see, like, you know, those old school computers that they had in the library with the green letters on the black screen, like almost like the Matrix. I see this black screen in front of me, And I just see these words pop up in front of me.
Why is the water cooler trying to come up my butt?
And these words go across the screen, and it was my last thoughts. And I was like, why would I be thinking, why is the water cooler trying to come up my butt? And then it dawned on me, dude, you got blown up. And at that moment started to I kind of started to move around and start to look around. And my consciousness was at a place where I looked at one of my buddies who was right next to me. I looked at the side of Wellerman's head, and I knew he was looking at my body, and I was like down on the floor, almost kind of in the undercarriage of the vehicle. And I couldn't look at myself, but I knew he was looking at me, and he had this big look on his face, like, oh my gosh, like Corporal Rogers got wiped out. Like, oh my goodness, just terror, sheer terror on his face, terror. And I just remember looking at him, and I saw him, and I knew what was going on. And then I realized I was in Iraq, and then boom. This feeling of sorrow, deep, the deepest sorrow I've ever felt in my entire life. I've never felt sorrow like that since, and never before. And this deep sorrow hit me, and I was upset about two things. One, the fact that I had failed. I failed to live purposefully. You know, I realized that I was dying, that I had died, and I had lived an unlived life. You know, like I felt this feeling that, like, this reminder kind of like how I went through every single day, like not living life to the fullest, how I went through every single day just kind of taking it for granted. Like, yeah, here we are, like I'm gonna do this, that, and the next thing. I always went hard. I've always been intense, but like just not living life, not making the most of it. And here I was, 19 or 20 or something, and I was gone as far as I could tell. And then the other thing was just, I felt like I failed my whole family and everybody who loved me. And I just started saying I was sorry. And I started saying I was sorry to my mom. I started saying I was sorry to my dad. I said sorry to all my friends. I said sorry to all my sisters. I said sorry to everybody who I cared about. I said sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm such a failure. I can't believe I'm a pile of guts on the floor in Iraq. I'm a pile of guts on the floor in Iraq. I can't believe this. I'm so sorry. I failed you guys. And I went through everyone I loved. And then when I got to my grandma's face, and I was apologizing to her, I heard her voice, and she used to always tell me this as a little child. She was like, Byron, if anything ever happens to you, or if anything ever is stronger than you, just say Jesus. And by the third time, just Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And eventually by the third time, it'll go away. And so I just sat there, and I just was like, Jesus, 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 with all that sorrow and passion and everything that I had in me. I was just like, Jesus, 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 Jesus. And my guys make fun of me to this day because I came back into my body just saying Jesus, 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 Jesus. And then I got control over my body, and I couldn't move, and I just kept saying Jesus. And then my body started working, and I got up, I got back, and I got angry, and just like this anger took over my body, and was just like, I am not gonna die here, and I'm not gonna live an unlived life. In that very same moment, I decided I'm gonna live this life to the fullest, every single moment of it, so that if someone kills me tomorrow, if someone kills me today, if someone kills me before we get done with this interview, I'm gonna go to the next world, knowing that I lived my life to the fullest. And I wake up at 4 a.m. every single morning because of that. But I literally got control of my body, kicked the back of the ladder, back out of the truck, because it had been like pretty much welded shut from the blast. And basically, I told you it was a 7-foot drop for those 7 tons. I got up and blacked out. The guys told me what I did, and they said, dude, you jumped like 15 feet out of the back of the truck like a crackhead. And for me, I just woke up in a field of reeds, and they're like, you sprinted. And I was like 30 yards away in a field of reeds, and my guys hadn't even got out of the truck yet. And I was like, get out of the truck. I get them out of the truck, and we start moving and we start taking over houses and taking over, we take over this little kind of village that was nearby. But, I took a class 5 concussion and I fractured my elbow, but I got out pretty much unscathed, and my guys kind of got banged up, but I got hit directly with 62 pounds of homemade explosives detonated directly underneath me. And, it was just crazy because, one of my buddies had a bad feeling. And we were driving and, his name's Foster, and Foster's like, hey, Silverback, I gotta stop real quick, man. I got a bad feeling. And I was like, Roger that. Silverback was my call sign. And I was like, Roger that, brother. If you got a bad feeling, let's stop and check it out. And he's like, good to go. And right as he rolled to a stop, I didn't even feel it, like I said. So that day, and that's what the tattoo on my back is about. If you ever see any of the pictures that I have on my Facebook or whatever, if you ever see that, when I came back, I got like a tattoo that was a memorial for that. It's like an 11-hour cross on my back with Corinthians 15:10, by the grace of God, I am what I am, which is just to remind me where I get my strength and why I'm here. And, yeah. Getting out of the military, even after everything I had done and been through, was still one of the scariest things that I had to do, that I was faced with in my past, because, oh man, for so many reasons, because you've done all this awesome stuff, here you are, you've built this like Lamborghini engine, you can achieve this level of intensity and do these things that not very many people can do, and you've been through the sleep deprivation, you've been through the cold training, the cold, mountain warfare, you've been through, you've gone without water, you've gone without food, you've done all these things. And so you have this it's like a Lamborghini engine in you, and then you get to the civilian sector and you're like kind of forced to drive 25 miles an hour for the rest of your life. So you're just like, what? Like, I never get to be this intense anymore. Like, it's over, some people say PTSD is when you realize you're never going to be that like cool again, like you're never going to be that war hero again. But at any rate, that's just a joke. But at any rate, so there's this part of you that you have the most validation. You have, at that age, I get out at 21, 22, you have the most mental reference points validating that you're a Marine Corps. I'm a Marine Corps squad leader. I haven't done anything else. I'm a boot at life. I'm now in my early 20s and I have no like civilian job experience or life experience, so it's like, unless I become a police officer or I, get into contracting, fighting other people's wars for money, I got to start from scratch. So that's mortifying. And this aspect of you is so intense and it's so much of you that it's so sacred. And it's the Marine Corps, the values are honor, courage, and commitment. So you can just imagine the incongruence and the lack of resonance that, these guys are experiencing when they get out here in what we call the first civilian division, when they're out here with these civilians, when your moral code is kind of honor, courage, commitment, and you're dealing with people that, their moral code is like, my excuse is good enough to not produce, kind of, in a lot of cases, so, there's that friction that's going on as you deal with, trying to get into the civilian sector, but everything that you've worked for, everything that you hold dear about yourself in combat and everything else, because you got to remember, combat is so much more real than the civilian world. It's so much more intense than the civilian world. It's like eating steak your entire life. And then, you come out here and like, you're forced to, be a vegetarian. Nothing against vegetarians. I eat primarily all vegetables all day, but you know what I mean? So there's this like intensity that's not there anymore. There's just this waning comfort that's there, which actually makes it even more dangerous. Which is the paradox, which is funny. Nothing will lead you closer to destruction than comfort. So you sit here and you're getting out and you're like, well, I've been through all this stuff and I have, what it takes to be successful out here for sure, because I've been through all this crazy stuff and I've been blown up. And so you kind of let your guard down in one sense to where you're like, all right, I know I have what it takes. It's going to be okay. I'm finally going to get my freedom. And in the other sense, you're like, I got to figure out how I'm going to survive. So you're in this really awkward spot. And, it's just really scary. And what I believe happens to a lot of vets is this thing called the atrophy of identity, where that military identity, there's no place that they can find a perceived value to leverage the soft skills of who they were in the military, all those soft skills of discipline, determination, but that intensity as well. There's no place they can find out here to leverage that. And so the part of their identity that has to do with that dies slowly. And, then unfulfillment starts to set in, where you're not fulfilled, you're not happy because you're experiencing a lack of purpose for a part of your identity that's so important. And then you want to change your state because you're feeling unfulfilled. Your state of operation, in human needs psychology, which is what I'm certified in, is, focus, physiology, and conversation. What you focus on, what your physiology is doing, and what your conversation and your mind's doing. When you're experiencing a state that's unfulfilled because you have no purpose for a part of you that's really sacred and precious, or just in general, if you have no purpose, what do you do if you look around your house and you see something that you don't have a purpose for? What do you do with anything that you see that doesn't have a purpose? You throw it away. It's no good to you. So, I don't think that, because of kind of the paradigm, the mechanistic mindset that was necessary for, the evolution of man to be able to create all the technology that now gives us the ability, to have this autonomy and go after our purpose and passion and all these things, i.e. the internet and all this stuff, but that bygone paradigm of just like, don't honor what's precious to you, get a job and go to school, that mindset has taught us not to honor what's, our purpose and our values and things like that. So anyways, when, you get out and you have that, what I call atrophy of identity taking place, where you don't know your purpose and your state of operation is unfulfilled, you're going to want to change your state. And how do you change your state if you don't know how to do it the way I just explained? How to change your focus, your physiology, your conversation in your mind? You're going to try and change your state biologically using chemicals. And so, that's why you see, I believe, one of the reasons you see so much substance abuse within the veteran community. And you want to change your state because you're not feeling fulfilled. So you start smoking cigarettes, you start drinking, you start eating way more because all those things release that dopamine and do all these things inside your body to change your state. You start feeling good again. And it gives you that kind of false fulfillment for a moment or two. When I came back from Iraq, both times I was an alcoholic for a month straight. That's a whole other story, myriad of stories. But, by the grace of God, I got on my horse and I got my things together. So getting out of the military is mortifying. And, I remember once I got out, I was sitting next to my buddy, Corporal, Hicks, who told me, combat's a mind job. I remember asking him, hey man, is this what it's like out here? Is it always going to be like this? Is it always just going to be like just unreal and unfulfilling and like mundane and just whatever? I asked him, I was like, does that itch ever go away? And he's like, no, it doesn't. This is it, man. This is all I've ever known. And that's when I was like, no way. Cause I'm going to be one of these casualties. We got 24 vets a day committing suicide. Okay. So this is real. There's definitely, to me, that's combat. We never lost that many Marines, in combat ever, and that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But
can you give us an example or share with us one or two stories from when you first got back? You said you had a myriad of stories where, you had to deal with certain aspects of this shift or transition.
So what happened was I got back and I felt like I adjusted really well, just having the outlet of my faith and good guys around me and whatever else. But I noticed that at nighttime I would get angry, really angry, like furious, and I just wouldn't know why. So I would just, ask one of my buddies I would give one of my buddies a ride, and we'd go and we'd get, I get a fifth of Absolute vodka every single night. And every single night I sat by myself and drank a warm fifth of Absolute vodka. And then I just pass out, for a month straight. And then the only thing that really stopped me was simply the fact that we were going on runs, and I remember running my guys, and I remember my lungs were good, but my kidneys started hurting. And then, I was like, oh my gosh, like this can't happen. And I can't disgrace myself in front of my guys. I'm not going to fall out of a run. I'm going to die before I do that. So, then I started kind of being like, all right, only on the weekends you're going to drink, like get your life together. And that kind of helped me get up from that. But the really kind of intense pit where I didn't realize that I was kind of losing myself and losing my life happened after I got out of the military. And, I was in the civilian sector and I had an awesome job, and, I was traveling the world, and I was in all of the, places everyone wants to be with celebrities and VIPs and, best hotels in the world, traveling on private jets, doing the executive protection thing. And I was just kind of empty inside. So I was, partying and doing all the party drugs and stuff every single night of the week. So I was like, I'm Marine, like I'm hardcore, so I would go out. Monday was comedy night. We were partying, doing drugs. Like every single night I was doing something. And I just went through this phase where it went on for a good few years where I was just doing all of these drugs and partying. And I realized eventually, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And by the grace of God, I just got that instruction, like, hey, this next April, you need to move down to Florida with your father, and, start an executive protection company, and so I just knew that's what I needed to do, but I wasn't really conscious of the fact that that was like kind of God, like giving me a reset. And it ended up being one of the most awesome times of my life where I literally went down there. I wasn't losing myself in terms of, the fact that I was addicted to anything and I couldn't control myself, but I was losing myself in the fact that, things were just starting to go too fast, and I was starting to do these things too much, and there's just something was going to break. Something was going to go wrong, and I couldn't break away from my way of life while I was in my current environment. So I just left. I left everything, and I left everything, like 6-figure job, everything, to go kind of into my desert, and to really find myself down there in Florida, because my dad owns a security company in the Bahamas. And it was in that time, that I really started to realize, dude, you're looking for that high. You're looking for that fulfillment that you were getting in the military. And what it was you were trained so intensely. You choose an identity, you see a poster, you watch a movie, you play a video game, whatever it is, and you have this identity. I want to be a Marine. You choose this identity, and then you get trained to serve a purpose, and then you have a job that's in alignment with your purpose. So you have your identity, you serve a purpose, and you experience fulfillment, and that's what was going on, right? Well, it wasn't like that here. I was all invested in the Marine Corps. Those were my values, because growing up, I was watching all these action heroes. And then out here in the civilian sector, it was just, I wasn't congruent. And so I was experiencing this inner disconnect, when you're not congruent with your values, you experience kind of like an inner turmoil. There's no resonance with what you're doing. And so I was experiencing that, and I was trying to get fulfillment out of like dopamine releases, and a lot of Marines do, a lot of military, servicemen, they get motorcycles. When we get back from deployment, every battalion plans on losing a few Marines to motorcycle accidents. That's just the way it works, because you're trying to get that high. And what I found was that I can get that sense of fulfillment through a process that really blossomed into what I have now, called the finding meaning after the military process. And it's really just all about literally sitting down and becoming deliberate about how you want your life to be in alignment with your purpose and your values, and using guerrilla warfare tactics to work towards that daily, and to stay deliberate about that, and becoming conscious and like consciously creating your life situation in alignment with your personal purpose and your personal values. And it's just something that's not honored in our society. And I think that that's got a lot to do with why we see so many, health and addiction issues in our world, and suicide, especially in the veteran community.
So you've taken advantage of your experience and put something together. And so now you have sort of your own platform, right? Where you can share these things and you can help people who have gone through similar things and are dealing with similar issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a voice, like I said, your pain and the process that you've overcome or gone through is what really can give you a voice and a podium to speak from, and kind of points to your tribe and the people you can influence. So I've had a voice with the veteran community, because of my life experience. But yeah, no, this is a message I want to bring to the entire world. This is something that I believe is just so important for right now where we're at, just in the development just of humanity, like that mechanistic phase of humanity, I believe was important in order to get us to where we're at now, in order to empower us to do things like have these podcasts and, get online and build so many things that are in alignment with our individual purpose and, all the things that you guys are doing and I'm doing, etc. But now I believe more than ever, it's all important for people to start honoring like the gifts God gave them and why they're here on the planet and being who they're called to be. So yeah, no, this is something I want to take to the whole entire world. But the veteran community is really where I'm having the most resonance because of my experiences and my story. And I'm 29 and, so that's kind of my class right now. My guys that are my age,
Yeah. So now you're an awake guy, right? You know what's going on in the world.
Right. I like to think so, somewhat. I stay in a weird space, so I'm like deliberately unplugged from a lot.
Right.
And kind of have my ear to the ground with some stuff.
Yeah, I totally get that.
I guess the question is, knowing what you know now about the world and the conspiracies or whatever you want to call it, looking back on your experience, because obviously your experience isn't going to change, but does it shed new light into it? Does it provide a new perspective for what you went through? Or is it something where you just respect where you were at that time in your life?
It's interesting. As I look back at, at the end of the day, I was just kind of like, I kind of honor where I was psychologically because it was so appropriate for what I had to do. And it helped me stay congruent and have less friction internally because my values, were kind of just like in alignment with what I was doing. And it made me really like just able to do what I was doing. If not, I don't know what would happen. But I do remember a specific moment after I'd been trained in demolitions as an assaultman and, we're, spending days trying to blow things up right, get the equations right, do all this stuff right. And then I saw something that had the Twin Towers in it and the Twin Towers blew up. And I just remember like, boom, like, that moment in your brain where you're just like, boom, explosion, your mind blown. And I just remember being like, what? Like, no, because I knew instantly, dude, that's impossible. Like, I just remember thinking like, that is just absolutely magnificent, gorgeous demolition. And I was like, wait a minute. No, it's not demolition. A plane flew into the building. And I'm like thinking of all the equations and everything they're teaching us. I'm like, no, but there's no way that they would implode perfectly down, boom, 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 down on, I'm like, it's just impossible. And I'm like sitting here and I don't even remember where I was. I don't remember if anyone was around me. I don't remember if I even could say it out loud, but I was just sitting there just like, oh my gosh, like this is just flawless demolition. And like for that to happen once by chance, then God must have had angels around the building making sure that it didn't fall in any other direction or nothing happened. And then it happened a second time identically. I just was like, okay. And that was like one of the moments in my life where I was like, look, dude, things are not what they seem. Okay. They're just not. Okay. And that and the time when, the first time the Iraqis were like, hey, you guys are destroying us. And you're setting us up for ruin because you're not going to stay here. You're not going to live here. When you leave and you go back to sunny California, they're going to rape and pillage and murder everyone here. And what happened? Very last night, leaving on from my first deployment, first and foremost, we get into country and they've assassinated the entire police force and taken over this whole entire area where we were deployed to. So we had to get there and clear them out. But they're smart. So they don't fight us. They don't stand up and fight us for the territory. They just go underground until, they want to pop up. So we play that game with them. And then we hold elections for them to elect their officials so that they can have democracy. And the night we leave, like we got like 9 or 10 officials elected and they all resigned. Like before we could even get in our vehicles and drive off, there was already another Marine Corps unit replacing us. They were left seat, right seat. They were ripping with, but everything that we had just put in place, the whole government infrastructure, they just all resigned.
Wow.
One night before we even got a chance to leave. So, that's when you're just kind of like,
was it worth it?
Wow. Like what? Yeah. Like what was it all for? And then you just have to find the empowering meaning, and be like, you know what? There's a whole bunch of life experience and things that are inside of me that may even be in my subconscious that make me a lot stronger for having gone through this. Yeah, sleep deprivation, miserable. You only sleep an hour and a half at a time for the most part.
Wow.
Okay. So you're drunk with sleepiness like a lot of the time, and it makes it so your memories can't build, you can't have no time to classify your experiences. But you would think like the sleep deprivation is tough, and then the water, like not having water or having to drink hot water, like you learn to put water in a sock, get the sock wet, and spin it like a windmill to cool off your water before you try and drink because it's so hot. And then the food and stuff, yeah, that all messes you up. But homie, not taking showers for a week, not taking showers for 2 weeks minimum to 3 weeks, that'll change you. You'll be a different person at the end of that period of time. That was like the most atrocious part of the whole, it was just like, man, because you change, you turn into a different person. You're like animalistic kind of nature kind of comes out a lot more.
So, experiment for all of our listeners. Don't take a shower for no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. That not being able to call home.
Yeah. Now, do you think that this whole idea of the super soldier that they're trying to build, they're trying to create ways for the soldier to not have to sleep at all, turn off particular parts of the brain so you don't have to sleep. Maybe some genetic enhancements to see better, to run faster, to, recover faster, things like that. Ethically speaking, in your position, I think if these things were available to you in the process of you going through the military, do you think you would have taken them? And then in hindsight, do you think it would have a different effect on you? Now that you kind of are out of it and you kind of know what you know now with what they're trying to do and whatnot with transhumanism and all that stuff that we've talked about for a few years now on this show. So I guess 2-part question. 1, would you have gone through it at the time? And 2, in hindsight, would you have gone through it, with all that enhancement if it was available?
Mm-hmm. For sure. Definitely at the time, based on my mindset at that time, would have done it. Everybody would have done it. We'd have been 100% on board, all about it, doing it more if we could. Like, the mindset you're in when they get the mind job when they get done with that mind job, that they've been perfecting since 1775, you're all about it. And if they say it's good, you're about to do it. More than likely, most people, you're like 18, 19 years old. I remember going back on base a few months ago and I'm looking at all these kids and I'm like, did they take advantage of us? I'm like, you're only like 18. You got no idea what's going on. But anyway, so, I would have done it. And, obviously knowing now, that whole, trying to be as gods through, intellect and all this stuff, absolutely not. I wouldn't want to mess with anything like that. That's not something I want to, really ever get into. But, I know at the time, man, would have been all about it.
Well, yeah, that's just interesting. It's an honest answer and I appreciate that because it's that perspective that you are conditioned to be in at that time. But, it does bring up interesting questions about the future of what we're going to face as far as military goes and what they might be, just with that proper mindset, they won't probably have an issue with, here, we're going to inject you. You're going to have eagle eye vision. They're going to genetically modify you to have, whatever, a sonic hearing system or night vision, no more goggles necessary, that kind of stuff. And that stuff is again, beneficial from the standpoint of a military operation, the job you need to get done. But then the ethical question from a sociological or a step back point of view, it's kind of like, what are we doing to ourselves? And that's when it starts getting into the conversation for me of, several passages in the Bible that are prophetic that seem to be suggesting that there are going to be things like this. For example, in Revelation 9, they will seek death and not find it. Jesus saying, if I don't put an end to this, all flesh is going to be corrupt and destroyed. And it's going to be as the days of Noah. And what was going on in the days of Noah? Well, they were messing with the genome. And then, of course, Noah was still alive during the Tower of Babel. So similar to, I think, what's going on now with CERN, and they're trying to understand the fabric of the universe and find out the mysteries and secrets of the neutrinos and all this stuff that they're doing, trying to mess with creation. And, even scientists are like, hey, don't mess with that. We're going to create black holes and we can, snap out of existence and all this stuff. It just seems like all the stuff they're doing today is very similar to what was going on back then. But, I think what you're doing is so important for, people that don't have anywhere else to turn and maybe don't know what to do. And I would like you to speak just briefly on the difference between, because you've talked a lot here about purpose. The most popular book, one of the most popular books in modern institutional Christianity is A Purpose-Driven Life, right? It's by Rick Warren. And, I'm not going to sit here and bash Rick Warren, but, there are some things that are suspect there. How is your understanding of purpose different from that of like the mainline, your purpose-driven life kind of, perspective?
The way I approach purpose is that, well, first and foremost, I believe everyone's been sent to this planet. Like, I believe we've all been given talents, like it says in the Bible, we've all been given talents and we've all been given gifts, and we're all, kind of on our journey. And, it's up to us really to walk in what is here for us, the promises that are here for us, the identity that's here for us, to walk in that or not. But the way I approach purpose, especially when I'm, dealing with everything that's secular, is, you have a present purpose now. And I just feel like, I believe that a lot of people are just drifting through life rather than driving through life. So my primary effort is to get people from just doing things because they were told that they're right, while sidelining their own personal desires and their own personal, what would make them happy and what's in alignment with their individuality. So, in the military and everything, I'm dealing with kind of that more, secular space, so I really dial purpose down to becoming deliberate about your life, and not just playing it safe, but allowing yourself to use your vision rather than just your sight. My people perish, or what is it? People without vision was the verse I'm looking for. That's not coming to me right now about vision. And, people perish for, without vision, my people perish, or something like this. It's not coming to me right now. But the point is, I want to really get people to start living more deliberately and not just drifting and not just watching TV and not just, going and getting a job because their parents said it was a good idea. And you know what I mean? So the way I approach purpose is really just to wake the person up, figure out what they want, what resonates with them, and then to start doing it. Because what I've learned is picking your present purpose, like everything that's taking place in your life is either empowering or disempowering based on the story you're telling yourself about it. We give everything meaning, essentially, whether, so what I've learned is being able to just choose a purpose and to step into the process, is what makes it so that you eventually arrive at what actually suits you best. So it's less about choosing your purpose, but it's more about becoming deliberate about your life and then trying. I was watching, Brian Tracy was talking about a TV show he was watching the other day where they had a panel of, a bunch of millionaires, and they're asking them, how many different endeavors how many different businesses did you start before you, made $1 million? And their average answer was 16 to 18 different businesses. So seed time and harvest, is the way of this planet until the end, is what Jesus said, So I always say for everything of value in this world, there is an appropriate process of purification and transmutation in order for the appropriate transformation to occur for the success of that thing. And we see these processes, in nature, with the caterpillar but with diamonds and with gold and, with pearls and how they all happen, but they're all unconscious, so as human beings, I want us to be conscious and deliberately choose. But then once you choose your purpose, I don't even know how many things I've tried and failed before getting here, where now I experience fulfillment because I'm congruent and I'm in alignment with what I believe God really sent me to this planet to do. Right. You know what I mean?
It's Proverbs 29:18, I think, is what you're talking about, where there is no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint, but blesses he who keeps the law. And some translations say that where there is no vision, the people are unrestrained, but happy is he who keeps the law. So, yeah, that's really interesting. The knee-jerk reaction for someone like myself is to, hear the whole purpose thing and think, oh my gosh, you're going in this new age direction. But realistically, I think what you're doing is when you talk about purpose and when you talk about helping people understand their role in life is, and I don't know if you include the prospect of because, in the 12-step program and stuff, there's the acceptance of admission of a higher power and that sort of thing. But where does that come in terms of the belief in God as part of the process? Because, ultimately, in a secular perspective, you don't necessarily need that. But at the same time, I think for a healthy sort of well-rounded perspective on all this, you kind of do need this submission to a higher power, so to speak. This,
Absolutely.
in my belief, and our belief, I think with all of us is in Christ and all this stuff.
Right.
And ultimately that's really important, but also that I guess my thing is that the way I understand how things play out is that the ultimate fulfillment of the things that we are purposed to do is a transformation that God will do.
Right.
We can only take it so far, but ultimately, as I think 1 Corinthians 15 is where it talks about our transmutation, our literal transmutation, where God gives us a brand new body and indestructible, immortal bodies. And that's something that we can't do on our own. We're trying to, and that's where the rub comes in, us playing God with science and technology and all this stuff. But, where does God fit into the picture when you help people? And then, do you at least acknowledge that, the ultimate sort of fulfillment is found in what God promised us?
Oh yeah. Like for me, the way I touch on that is I personalize it, and it's just like, this is my life's path and this is what life's shown me. And this is where my power comes from, but these principles will also work for you, to an extent. But when I'm dealing with that kind of that secular, when I'm dealing with them, I really do my best to take them as far as I can take them. Because at the end of the day, it's like, God's given us all human ability, and within that ability, you have a lot of awesome things you can do, and so if I'm dealing with, when I'm, doing a seminar or group coaching session, I am the example and I tell them how my life has gone and like a lot of the stories I've given you guys today and things like that. And if they ask or open that door, I go on ahead and, boom, I'm there. Otherwise I do my best to take them as far as they can go on, just on their own power. And it's just kind of like, look, why are you doing what you're doing? Are you experiencing any fulfillment doing whatever you're doing? And if not, then let's get deliberate about it, choose something and step into that process and go for it. That's simple, and what I've found is that people can do that, they can choose something that excites them and they can go for it. And the unfortunate thing is, you're only going to get a certain amount of fulfillment from that, but it's better than what they're experiencing. And when I'm, to answer your question most effectively, I really just shine my light and my experience as much as I can. I personalize it, but the principles I give them, will work. Just not like, you're not going to have that, knowing that you're safe and that knowing that everything's going to be okay. Like I'm going to have at the end of the day. And that opens doors for me as well to kind of speak directly to people. And, cause they all want to know, like, what is it? Especially when I tell the story about how I got into executive protection, like there's not a single victory in my life that I can take credit for because it all just happened by the grace of God,
That's cool. So, I appreciate that, man. That's really cool because I would suspect that form of evangelism, which is really what you're doing, is far more effective than going on a street corner holding up a sign that says you're going to hell. So I think that people would appreciate that. And it's something that I think hopefully there are listeners right now who, that would benefit a whole lot from just speaking to you or learning more from you. So let's go ahead and it's promo time, Byron. What is it that you are doing right now?
Promo time. Okay, good to go. Yeah. So these days what I'm doing is I'm helping people find purpose so that they can experience more fulfillment in life. And that's how I saved my life, is I started to really understand, like, what is the gift that I can give in every human interaction that can get me on a different economy, so in all of my experience and spending time with VIPs and all these people that everyone wants to be in, and in all these, elaborate environments, I learned that, like, it's not really about money. This life isn't about money. The emotional payoff that you experience, the validation and fulfillment that you experience is really one of the things that brings life back to life. And so, that's kind of what I do. And that's how I saved my life. I understood that empowerment is like one of the things that just brings me to life. So, I started doing that every single day. And that's kind of how I rehabbed myself back from the edge, when I was going through my, first civilian division experience and everything else. So what I do now is, one-on-one coaching, group coaching. We've got some events that are going to be coming up this year, and I speak at, I'm going to be speaking at some events also with some nonprofits this year for veterans primarily. But I can work with anybody. I want to work with as many people as I can. So that's all happening. I just finished the book, Finding Meaning After the Military, and that's going to be coming out here in the next few months. So there's going to be, that's up on my website for pre-sale orders and everything else. So that's happening. I'm excited about that. And then what I have with the Finding Meaning After the Military process is a virtual coaching platform. So within my website, Byron Rogers Motivation, which is where you can find me, Rogers with a D, Byron Rogers with a D, Motivation. Within that, there's a membership website aspect to it, and you'll find with Finding Meaning After the Military process, I have videos up, because it's a virtual coaching platform. And actually, as you go through those videos, you have different questionnaires and things that you can, that will help you really go inside yourself and ask the right questions and really get you thinking about, like, what is it that I really love? Like, what do I really want to do? What is it really? And then, other ones to help you find your values and kind of get congruent and, like, learn what percentage of the time are you actually honoring your values in your everyday life now? And then how can you get that percentage higher so that you're, overall having less internal conflicts as you go through your life. So there's videos, there's worksheets that you can fill out. And then there's also a dialogue box where I correspond, I send videos, I type responses to people and help them really implement all the different principles and techniques and things that I'm teaching and offering, back there in that membership website. So there's a lot of good stuff there too. So go check that out. That's my membership website. And then I do one-on-one coaching. I do group coaching, and then also, speaking, inspirational, motivational speaking, so that's what I'm up to. And you can find me at ByronRogersMotivation.com.
There are thousands and thousands of men and women just like Byron who have given years of their lives to protecting the United States of America. Many have experienced tragic things. All have given a piece of themselves. There are thousands of Iraqi war veterans around the country who have stories just like Byron's. You may encounter them every single day and not even realize the gravity of their experience. Many returned with the heavy loss of friends fallen in battle, and many did not return at all. If there are any children listening, or guardians of children, we urge you to skip ahead 30 seconds while we give a heartfelt honor to our veterans. You guys are so badass! You're the most badasses we've ever known! If you were any more badass, our heads would explode! Thank you. And we urge the federal government to release the hard-earned benefits of our courageous soldiers who sincerely gave their lives for the goodwill of their countrymen. So there you go, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Canary Cry Radio. Please go to our Facebook, Canary Cry Radio. Be friends with us. It's awesome. Go to iTunes, leave us a ratings and a review. You can give us stars and comments and things. It's great. Let everybody know why you love or hate Canary Cry Radio. Follow us on Twitter, Canary Cry Radio, all that good stuff. We're there. We also have canarycryradio.com, where we have show notes and awesome other things. And if you want to support Canary Cry Radio financially, you can hit the support tab and make a gift in any amount. You can do it monthly. It's a subscription. You just set it, it goes. It's automatic. You support Canary Cry Radio. You love it. We love you. Or if commitment is not your thing, you can make a one-time gift in any amount. Thank you so much. We love you. Make sure to check back for the next episode of Canary Cry Radio. But until then, think outside the cage.